Well, it's great to be with you today. I hope you've been staying safe and sane during the coronavirus pandemic. So tell me, how have you been these days?
Well, thanks for this, Michaela, and for the opportunity to talk about Arrupe and our work and our students, particularly during these very complicated, unpredictable, and troubling times. For myself, I'm okay. Thank God. I'm very aware that there are millions and millions of other people who have it much harder than I do. I'm living with the Jesuits, the Jesuit community at our residence at the Lakeshore campus of Loyola University. And so I benefit from, liturgy every day with my brother Jesuits and their companionship. And, at first I thought this might be like that play that's often produced in high schools, 12 Angry Men. We could be 22 angry Jesuits, but so far so good.
Thank goodness.
They're a great group, and they have been consistently supportive of Arrupe, our mission, and our students, and that has not let up during my weeks here at Ignatius House.
Fantastic. Let's hope it doesn't turn into 12 Angry Men over the next couple of weeks. Well, great. So I want to talk to you today a little bit about accompanying. And this is a concept that is referenced quite frequently by our Pope, Pope Francis. And he invites us to accompany each other by walking together as we travel through life. So tell me, what does accompaniment look like in your life at Arrupe College?
Yeah. I think that if Pope Francis were to visit Arrupe College, and I hope he does, he would see accompaniment brought to life. The way that our community, students, faculty, staff, administrators, the larger Loyola University Chicago community, our board members, our supporters, our friends, it's been an extraordinary experience. For me, and Pope Francis talks about this a lot, accompanying means meeting people where they're at. And that would characterize my work throughout my ministry and the work that goes on at Arrupe College every day. And it's going on now online, So we are finding out from each other where we are, what do we need, how are things going? And particularly with the students, and this has been a hallmark of our work from the get-go, our interest has been, to ask the students and learn from them, what are your goals? What are your experiences? What are you interested in, as opposed to kind of this top-down way of proceeding with our students? And because of them and their insights and their wisdom, that has really impacted the way that we deliver in our milieu, Jesuit liberal arts higher education. And we've learned so much from them. I've said this consistently through the 5 years that we've been open. The students have co-pioneered Arrupe with us. They're the co-founders because we've learned so much from them, and they've been the starting point for so many of our deliberations and our decisions. So again, meeting people where they're at has been a critical part of the experience, and it continues to be. I would say now, what do people need most, in this time of social distancing? Community. I'm hearing that from students and from colleagues constantly. And so I am confident, I know that our faculty continue to provide that through their classes and through their academic advising sessions. And then, there are other opportunities to gather online through Zoom, whether it is these impromptu dance parties, which I have not participated in yet, so stay tuned for that. But also meditation opportunities, open office hours from our associate dean and assistant dean in our division of student success. Opportunities for faculty and staff to check in with each other. Obviously, the ongoing work of our social workers. So, there have been a lot of opportunities. Oh, coffee and convo. where students, faculty, and staff have gathered on Zoom just to check in with each other. So that desire for community is certainly a universal. It's been very consistent at Arrupe. It's one of our great strengths. Our students contribute mightily to the effectiveness of our community. And, we are adjusting and learning how to experience community together as we accompany each other during this time of pandemic.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's funny to think back to March 13th, which was, for many of us, our last day at McGuire Hall with the students, right? And so it's been a month, and as you've said, we've been able to adapt and adjust quite rapidly, thanks to technology. How do you see, the active accompaniment transitioning even more during this next month, if at all?
Yeah, what can I say? Our students, all of us, are accustomed to being together. I'm from that kind of management leadership style of walking around the building, and I could get a lot accomplished by getting out of my office, popping into a classroom, stopping a student or a colleague in the corridors of McGuire Hall. So this is, a huge transition, and I know it's a challenge, I think, at times, to remain motivated, to remain focused. My messaging to our students has been to let us know what you need. Whether there's a professor or your advisor or someone else in the faculty or staff or me that, reach out to us and let us know how this situation is going, because many people know this, that Arrupe is year-round, so we're on the same schedule as the larger Loyola University. We run classes fall and spring semesters, and so things will wrap up for us early next month. And then we resume again, after Memorial Day, and we run classes until the last Friday of July. Well, I had hoped that we would be together at McGuire Hall this summer, but that was a difficult memo for me to send out to students and colleagues saying, doesn't look like it, and everyone understands this is obviously for our safety, and we're in compliance with the city and the state, but I think we just have to continue to keep our eyes on the prize of building our community and for our students to work towards that goal of degree completion.
Absolutely. So speaking of degree completion, let's talk about the success of Arrupe and, the model and the plans for replication in the coming months and years ahead.
Sure. Arrupe has been remarkably successful in our first 5 years. Arrupe was created largely for students who are Pell eligible, that they could experience a Loyola education, a Jesuit higher ed experience, and incur little to no debt. And so 3/4 of our students report having zero debt during their Arrupe experience. The other 25%, they talk about numbers that are under $1,500. So, and this is remarkable. And, when I look at our graduation rates, so, for benchmarking with other 2-year programs in urban settings, our students are completing into your 6, 7 times even, or maybe even 8 times higher than their counterparts in large urban areas in 2-year college environments. And then our 4-year graduation rates, or 5-year graduation rates. So nationally, 27% of those who start 2-year colleges complete their bachelor's in 6 years' time. Only 27% in 6 years' time. This past year, our first cohort completed their associates with us in 2017. 49% of them completed their bachelor's in 4 years' time. And we're teed up to be about 75, maybe even 80% completing their bachelor's in 5 years' time versus 27% in 6 years' time. So these numbers are remarkable. In terms of the four-year graduation rates, I mean, 88 to 90% of our graduates go on to four-year schools. They come to us interested in that bachelor's degree. And, you know, my concern, the concern of my colleagues has always been, all right, they have a good experience here. It's a positive experience here. There are a lot of supports here. Will this translate at their four-year institution? Well, we're seeing this whether they continue at Loyola or at state schools, at large schools, at small schools, at other Jesuit universities around the country, that they are in fact completing their bachelor's degrees in record times and numbers. So this is fairly well known. You know, last spring, some donors and foundations encouraged me to conduct a feasibility replication study on whether it would be feasible to replicate this model. We've been replicated once. St. Thomas University in St. Paul, Minnesota, opened their doors a few years ago. They visited us frequently. I sent people to advise them. I'm still in touch with the leaders there, and they've also enjoyed great success. Their first class graduated with associate's degrees last spring. So we're an N of 2. And, you know, I've been in conversations with Catholic colleges and universities, Jesuit colleges and universities, even non-sectarian schools about our model. So back to the replication feasibility study. I hired Accenture, and the result of their 6-week, you know, on-site visit with us, interviewing 70 students, faculty, staff, administrators, alumni, Loyola University administrators, donors, board members, was that this is very replicable. They were very sanguine about the possibility of other universities replicating our models. Our model. The Accenture and I identified several fit criteria that have to be in place at a larger university to host and to launch successfully an Arrupe model. So a lot of that, it makes sense. Your location. Can your students easily commute to you? Do you have a large population of Pell-eligible students? If there's already a high-performing two-year college within close proximity to you, this is not needed. You know, your infrastructure. Is there a building on campus or space on campus for this new academic unit? Is your president on fire about this model? You know, if she or he is not, or they're not endorsing this, or if this is not the right time in the institution's life cycle, that's totally understandable. What's the size of your endowment? So those are some of the criteria that I look at now when I'm talking to university presidents. And it's remarkable, even in this time of great uncertainty in higher ed, I'm hearing from different university presidents. I'm speaking to a group next week via Zoom about replicating our model. So, and I think that, you know, I'm very optimistic. You know, this is critical for higher ed in general, and particularly critical for the Arrupe model. We've got to convey that we have a strong value proposition for higher ed. You know, this pandemic has surfaced in our city here in Chicago and around the country, inequities in terms of healthcare. And I think that this could also further the discussion about inequities in higher education. You know, will low-income students be further pushed back because of a higher ed model that will be inaccessible and unaffordable for them? Our model proves that it's not an either-or issue. You know, one of my concerns for our students at Arrupe currently, or prospective students for Arrupe, is they'll say, boy, I'd love to do this, but I've got to help my mother. My father was downsized. My mother lost her job. I've got to go to work full time. You know, I was talking about this on a webinar with some leaders, including Don Graham from the Dream.us and Patricia McGuire. She's the president of Trinity Washington University. And we were saying it's not an either or, but rather this is what we're providing at institutions like Trinity or Arrupe. We're the lifeblood, we're the backbone. When I think about right now what we're offering our students in terms of mental health services, which they benefit from, legal services, which they benefit from, financial support. We have a hardship fund for students. We're buying groceries for students. Some students whose family have been impacted who have COVID-19 and they can't get out to buy groceries. We were ahead of the game of so many schools because of our wraparound support services that include every student who enrolls at Arrupe College automatically receives a laptop. So Michaela, you were talking about that last day. Other institutions were scrambling to find laptops for their students or get them to their students. Or, I know of some institutions where some of their students still don't have laptops. Our students had had those since August, the first year students. And for the other students, they've had them for the last year and a half and longer. We were able to provide hotspot devices for those students who did not have reliable internet service at home. So I guess my point is that because of all the services that Arrupe College provides, how can you not participate in a higher ed experience that we're offering here?
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and best of luck as you continue to bring this Arrupe model elsewhere, and stay safe during these strange and unprecedented times, and be well.
I just want to end with one thing. I'm in touch with a lot of students and a lot of colleagues, and I received this email on Holy Thursday night that was really extraordinary from a first-year student. I get a little emotional thinking about this. So he writes, my home has always been my mother and my two younger sisters. They are the most dearest to me, and I know one day we will have something positive for ourselves again. But similar to you, I have another home, and that would be Arrupe. It has been a place where it proved me wrong about how people are, and it's been absolutely great. Even though it's hard to see light or positivity a lot during these complicated, terrible days, I would like to remind you that you've built a home for me and others, to trust the process and simply thank you. A home that many people message me all the time explaining they miss school and that they enjoyed it all. Extraordinary. I mean, I just couldn't believe this was totally unsolicited. Happy Easter, Father K. Wow. So I think that's evidence about who our students are and the impact of community and how they build community. So again, thanks for the opportunity to talk about our students and our mission.
Absolutely. And to that student, I say amen.